Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and a stranger to the studio, Mr. Shotgun Spratling, back after a long hiatus. We're glad to have you back, Shotgun.
I'm here. Let's go.
Where were you? What did you do?
I was
You wanna give an update?
on assignment.
Assignment.
Yeah.
We've already talked about this.
I went to Clemson.
Show the hand, and that's all you got to do.
Just do
I
this.
went to Clemson. I
The
went to
other
South
hand.
Carolina.
Do your left
I
hand.
went to Greenville, South Carolina. You know,
He got married.
Marriage.
talking about.
Anyway,
I guess we still can't talk about
I
it.
guess not.
Poor Megan. You know.
we have a packed show today. A lot to talk about, a lot that developed today. First off, USC Spring Ball. It's week 2 underway. Practice again tomorrow. Also, USC Pro Day 2019. A little different without Sam Darnold there. A lack of GMs and owners there this year. So we'll get into that. And a breaking news that came out of today at the end of Pro Day. USC finally has a president, President-elect Carol Folt. She was the former UNC chancellor. So we'll talk about that. And of course, we will answer your questions and comments and concerns, if you will. I believe we are live on Facebook. I almost said television, YouTube, and Periscope.
We are.
We also have our live calls, our handler, Chris Trevino. He is there handling all the live calls.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, shouts to Chris. You can call us at 512-4-TUNNEL. Chris will be there to answer your calls, and we will answer them live on the show.
We want lots of live calls this week. Lots of live calls. Bring them in. Barrage Chris. We can put people on hold. We want a lot of live calls.
Yeah, we're on standby, ready for you guys. But so a lot to talk about today. We finally get to some news out of USC's Board of Trustees and out of the upper echelon of USC, if you will. Let's start off with that. The new president, what are your guys' first initial thoughts about who was named and what the future looks like for USC?
Yeah, we weren't hearing a lot. So it was about a 7-month search, I guess you could say. Wanda Austin was named the interim president. She came from the Board of Trustees. We know there's been a lot of infighting on the Board of Trustees, but they had a 23-person subcommittee that was the presidential search committee. They said it was a unanimous choice. Interesting because she did navigate UNC through some really difficult NCAA potential sanctions, and they ended up getting out of those. So it was a lot of people said one of the worst academic athletic scandals in history, and that was before she got there. And the fact that she was able to come in and the defense that she put through, and they end up walking away without getting any NCAA penalties. So I think that should probably be encouraging for USC fans that she could stand up to the NCAA. She ends up resigning in January and had a fight with their board of directors. So I think she's equipped to deal with that, knowing what it's like to try to deal with a board of directors. And it's a much bigger board of directors at USC. They have 60 people or something. I mean, there's 57 people. There's a lot of people on USC's board of directors. It's pretty big. So we'll see. But there was a big controversy over a Confederate statue. And that's kind of what, the way she was handling it. She wanted the statue gone. A lot of the people on the board did not want it gone, and the history and stuff. So there was a lot of fighting there. And I think, I think she handled that pretty well, trying to talk to people that are down there we know from North Carolina. I've only heard positive things from people that are down there and read some different stories and stuff. We're still trying to get a better feel since all this just broke today. If you were reading the Peristyle over the last 2 weeks, that's what the people were talking about. Her name is the one that came up. But I think it's a really, it's an interesting hire. She doesn't know the fight song. That's good. She's, she went to school out here in California, UC Santa Barbara and UC Davis, and worked at Dartmouth. And, basically she became a professor at Dartmouth and worked her way all the way up to the interim president, and she came over to be the chancellor at North Carolina. So I think it's interesting. I'm not going to pretend that I know a whole lot about university presidents, but I think it's important to have somebody in place. Everyone wants to know, is she going to come in and clean house in the athletic department and stuff? But she does seem like someone that cares about athletics. So I think you didn't want someone that came from some school, liberal arts school that doesn't even have a basketball team. She at least has, major athletic program that she dealt with.
What's wrong with liberal arts schools, Ryan?
I'm just saying.
Some of us went to those schools and had a basketball team.
That is fine, but you're president at USC when you have all this. There's obviously she's got a lot. There's a lot of messes to clean up, but the messes that people on this show normally care about are the ones in the athletic department. So you wanted someone that would have at least some kind of background in that, and she does. So we don't know how she's going to handle it. If she comes in and does a lot of big things in the athletics, like people will love her. If she keeps everything status quo, people probably won't like her right away.
I mean, the couple of people I've talked to from the region, in the South that know anything about her said that she understands the importance of athletics. And you can kind of see that with the North Carolina academic scandal, with the basketball team embroiled in, and how she flipped it and said, hey, this is an academic issue, not an athletic one, where she could have potentially just thrown the basketball or football teams under the bus, and instead she basically told the NCAA to get the hell out of here. This is our problem, not anything that you can deal with. So I think that tells you that she understands the importance of an athletic program and a strong athletic program. UNC, obviously, their basketball program has been, one of the best in the country for years and years and years.
Right.
And, I think that when you go to a school like that and you see how valuable it is in bringing other students in and, the importance of a program like that to a school, a blue blood program, and what it can mean for the school overall, I think that even if it was only a small tenure she had, I think that is definitely a positive because you see the impact that it has on the rest of the campus as a whole. I think they said that USC was basically like we've been looking for 7 months. The statue went down 7 months ago, exactly 7 months ago today. In I think August or September, whatever 7 months ago is.
Yeah.
That's when the students pulled down a Confederate statue there. There's a whole big thing after that, but she ends up stepping down. But that was exactly 7 months ago. So I don't know if somebody at USC was like, well, this might not end well over there. So maybe that's somebody we've been looking at for a while. I don't know if that's the case, but just kind of an interesting coincidence there.
Yeah, she hasn't been like she was the president at North Carolina, the chancellor for 6 years or so, I think it was. She's 2013 to 2000, something like that. So it's not like, she's got 20-year history of being, she was the interim at Dartmouth for a little while. But, we'll see. I mean, I think, she has some familiarity with the West Coast. She has some strength on the athletic side of things. And you just need somebody. It was basically a rudderless ship for a long time. Now you have a president in place. Really the first permanent. This is the 12th president in USC history. I looked through all of them. None of them were women, so I assume this is the first woman ever besides, Wanda Austin. So I think that's a positive step, just doing that. But everyone here wants to know how she's going to handle athletics, and obviously it's going to take a little while to see how that goes.
What's interesting is that Dan and I were actually walking around doing instant after Pro Day and kind of talking to some of the athletic people department people who were coming in and out of Heritage Hall, and it seemed like word on the street was that she cleaned house after all the scandals at UNC. So I don't know how that applies to USC in particular, but it seems like she has a level of no nonsense when it comes to those types of things. So
yeah, that could be like if she came in, like I don't want to advocate anybody, but if she came in and like made some firings and like, okay, we're getting rid of this, but I think people would be like, wow, okay, she did say I watched some of her introductory press conference and she's got a lot to learn, and that's the thing. I think that's the thing you fear at USC is when you bring in people that are just going to let's learn how you guys do things here. I think you want to quickly, someone that's been a leader for a while, you want them to quickly come in and realize there's some things that are off. And I think if she can come in and do that, learn what's going on, wow, that doesn't make any sense, or why you're doing that, and make some big changes. I think people will like that if she comes in and makes some changes. Obviously on the university side, there's, lawsuits and all that kind of stuff she has to deal with. But on the athletic side, like Shotgun said, I mean, I think she looks at that as as the front door to the university. And I think she sees the importance of that. And if you do see the Coliseum, reopen and maybe the attendance isn't as going as well and the fans are still upset, we'll see what she kind of takes into consideration. But she's got a lot to learn. It's going to take a little while. She starts July 1st, I believe.
Yes.
But she'll be kind of hanging out, checking out what Dr. Austin's doing and all that. So we'll see how that goes.
And obviously there's a lot of things that need to be changed. I mean, everything from the admissions scandal to, the issues that USC's had over the last couple of years with the lawsuits like you talked about and the different things there. So there's going to be change. I don't think you're going to hire a new president and not expect there to be change after so much has happened in the last, 4 years or so that ended up with Max Nikias being fired. I think you're definitely going to have some change. Now, how quickly that comes will be interesting. Because if you start July 1st, classes start, late August, early September or so. That gives you about a month and a half, 2 months to decide if you want to make changes before the school year begins. So that'll be interesting to me to see, how quickly do you want to try to, if you come in now and you have, 3 months to look things over. decide once you get there, all right, I know what changes I already want to make. You can make those quickly before the school year starts. So you might even see some rapid changes, before, when USC comes back for fall camp, when they start at the beginning of August, you might see some things already a little bit different.
Yeah. She did raise, I think their campaign was $2.4 billion. And USC's obviously was the $6 billion campaign that went to $7 billion. But the knock was that USC just did everything they could just to raise money. So it seems like she's pretty decent at the fundraising stuff, but I don't think she put as much focus on it as Max Nikias did, where you kind of throw everything else to the side and there was just all fundraising.
True. So we're actually bursting at the seams with callers.
We are?
Yeah.
So we have people on hold?
We do. We have multiple people on hold right now.
Let's get them.
Okay, so we have, I'm going to go to Daniel first. Daniel in LA. I believe you are on the line. Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Daniel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey.
What's your question for the team?
Quick question. I hope you guys don't blacklist me for asking this. It's kind of a basketball question, but related to the freshman.
What? You're out. I'm just kidding.
My question is, knowing that she's coming from, one of the biggest blue bloods of basketball history, and I've seen online of her, on the steps, on the ladder, cutting down nets with North Carolina doing tournament wins and things like that. My question is, does this put Andy E automatically on the hot seat? Because when she goes to the Galen Center, I don't know, next season, whenever, and she sees there's 50 people in there, I wonder if she's going to be like, what the heck is this? Why is this not, because she's coming from a basketball school first, so she might obviously understand the basketball program before football. That's my question.
I think that's a great point, Daniel. And I don't think USC people have been able to figure out why. Just USC basketball just seems to be a snake bit program. Maybe she has some different ideas and stuff too. You've had 3 athletic directors in a row who are all football players. Maybe she will bring a little more attention to that program. We'll see. You go to the Galen Center, they still have all the graphics are on the wall from 2009. They haven't updated that stuff. I think she might walk through the Galen Center and go, "This is dumb. Why has this not been updated?" So, yeah, I think that it could potentially be a very positive thing for the basketball program.
I think this is the comparison in North Carolina is more related to the football program, though, because it's the bell cow at North Carolina. There's no doubt. The basketball program there is everything for North Carolina, especially you're in Tobacco Road with North Carolina State and with Duke. None of those programs are really good at football. They're all pretty good at baseball, but that is obviously not the same as a football or basketball program. So I don't think it necessarily is going to be a sport to sport, but I think it's going to be, okay, this is the bell cow of the school to the bell cow. So it's going to be basketball to football. I think you're going to look at the football program like, hey, we need to get that one on track. If that's what, if that's even her thoughts. If she saw that at North Carolina and said, hey, when the basketball program was good, we got this many more applications or whatever it may be, I think she would look at the football program at USC and think that rather than looking at the basketball program at USC.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't think it can hurt, though, Daniel. I don't think she's going to come in and have Andy Enfield fired. He's got one of the best recruiting classes coming in the country, but I think there'll be more focus potentially on the basketball program, at least from the president's office.
Mm-hmm. Good question, Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you for calling. We have more questions. Do you want to take it, Ryan, or do you want to keep discussing this? Another caller, Richard, has a question about Carol and the football program. Want to take it?
Yeah, might as well.
All right.
I like when we have people on hold. That's what we got a new system where we could have multiple calls. We wanted people to be able on hold, so this is awesome.
Richard, hello.
Hi, Richard.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
I'm a big fan. I've been listening to you guys for a year now.
Thanks,
Thank
Richard.
You. Thanks, Richard. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really an honor and privilege to talk to you guys. But thank you for answering my call.
Oh, hey, the honor's ours, Richard. Thanks for calling.
So what's your question for the team?
Yeah, let's say we go 7 wins this season. And let's say Clay Helton will play. Do you think Clay Helton will get the benefit of that and coach the rest of the season?
Interesting. So here, go ahead, Richard.
And let's say he goes 7 wins this season, and he gets fired. Would he get fired mid-season, or would he give the benefit of doubt to the rest of the season?
Yeah, good points, Richard.
The rest of the season.
Here's the thing: if you would have talked about the beginning of 2018, you called into Tunnel Vision. We couldn't call in then, but if you wrote in, you said, "Hey, if USC goes 5-7, is Clay Helton gone?" You'd be like, "Yeah, I would think so," but obviously that didn't happen. I've said this before. I kind of feel like, Richard, this time through, that it's going to take more than 7-5 to for Clay Helton to save his job. And if it's a 2-4 kind of start to the season, I think it could potentially happen then, because the first part of the schedule is tougher than the second part. I think all bets are going to be off now. For whatever reason, I just feel like Lynn Swann was not going to fire him after 2018, almost no matter what. But 2019, I feel like everything's on the table. So, I think something like 7-5, he's probably gone. I don't know what you think, Shotgun.
I don't know that it'll happen during the season. I think that will depend on how the season plays out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you start 7-0 and lose your last 5, you're not getting fired in the middle of the
Right.
season. But if you start 2-4, that might be enough. Depending on how the games are played out. I think that. I mean, people forget that it's not just wins and losses; it's also the appearance of it. Last year they went 5-7, but it looked even worse than that at times. I mean, the Cal game, you lose that game, but that game just looks really, really bad if you go back and watch that game, because you're dominating the game and then all of a sudden you can't do anything. Similar with Utah or Texas, when it's 34, 35 straight points, that's a lot different than
when you're up by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a lot different than losing 21-20 or 31-30 or whatever it may be, a last-second Hail Mary or something like that. It's much different. So I think it depends on how the games play out and also how the season plays out. I don't think you can really say necessarily when it will happen during the season if you go 7-5, but it would seem you're going to have to do better than 7-5 this year if you want to keep your job.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Richard, for the call.
Thank you, Richard. We have another caller.
Wow.
Yeah, we got calls everywhere. Actually,
You want to do something
we're
else?
going to go to a different topic right now, just
Okay.
because Eddie has been waiting for 13 minutes, and I think Eddie deserves to get his time.
Let's go.
Hello, Eddie. How you doing?
Hello, guys. How's it going?
Good. What's
Thanks
your
We got the
question?
A team going.
That's true. The OG team is back. What's your question for the team?
My question is, with the pro day going today, did we see anybody improve their stock? Did we see somebody? I know they're all hell of athletes. They're all really good, but did somebody stand out, and did they make a last final impression for their stock?
Looking at that, I think Porter Gustin is the one guy that had a lot to prove today.
Yeah.
Because he even talked about when he came back for the combine, he still his ankle just did not have the flexibility in it that he needed to be able to make the cuts and different things. Some of the cuts and turns I think is the word he used. So I think that he was able to showcase that he's back healthy, and he said that's the number one question he's been asked. Is he injury prone? Or was it 2 freak accidents? He tries to tell teams, hey, it was 2 freak accidents or freak injuries, one of them not even on the football field, and they were both bone-related. So bones usually heal back better than, you have less chance of, having a lingering issue with bones.
Like a recurrence or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, he thinks that he's back healthy 100%, and he was happy to be able to come out and showcase his ability to go back and forth, with the shuttles and different things like that. Now, he said he probably was a little rusty and didn't have the same numbers that maybe he would have been able to put up last year at the same time or whatever it may be. But I think that he had the opportunity to showcase himself. You saw that he worked out not only with the linebackers, so he did some coverage drills and stuff where he's backpedaling and stuff like that, but also as a defensive end. He's got that versatility. The question is, what do teams see him as? And I didn't get a chance to ask him that because the scrum was cut off a little bit. But, where will he fit with a team? That'll be the big question. I think he's got to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think that's where he fits best. I don't necessarily know that he can put his hand down on the ground and be quite as effective because he's been so used to standing up. So, you got to find the right team for him, I think. But I think he can excel. I think he can go and have a Uchenna Nwosu, type of position where he's coming off the edge and you're going to be rushing the passer most of the time, and then you can drop every once in a while. I think he has a chance to do that. I mean, the other guy that was impressive, obviously, is Jake Olson.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the guy that was the most impressive. It's not impressing for the NFL teams, but the guy is just incredible.
17 reps on the 225 pounds, where he could only do 3 like a couple years
And
ago.
technically, he did 2 warm-ups. Like, they were warm-ups, but he didn't know if they counted or not. So he did 19, but, like, officially he was like, well, I don't know if those count, so let's go with 17. So he did 19,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah,
It's pretty impressive. I mean, he did more than like Cameron Smith did. He did more than Cedric Ware did. Like, he did more than some of the guys that are trying to get in the NFL.
And he said that when he first got to USC, he couldn't do any. and then it wasn't until after the Rose Bowl, I believe
He said during the Rose Bowl practices.
Yeah, so leading up to that is one of the first time he was able to get 225 up. He did it 3 times, he said. So he's gone a long way, obviously. He said that he's gained probably 5 or 6 reps since the beginning of the season when he's just been putting in the time and effort for it. But he was kind of disappointed that he didn't get to 20. That was his goal, but he's still happy with 17 and the ability to raise money for a cause that is obviously very close to his heart.
Right.
And the fact that there's been research being done on the retinoplasty that he had. I believe I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
That there's been some kids in Canada that have restored their sight because the research is being done. So it's a very important cause to him, and great to see him put that together. And hopefully people continue to donate money to that cause to help the future Jake Olsons of the world.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that's going to go and do great things. He's going to
He's
continue
already doing speaking tours. He's going to be golfing with Ryan on
I'm golfing with him on Saturday. So at the Trojan Athletic Fund, the Club of the Desert, I believe is the full name of it, but they're having a Marv Goo golf tournament. And I'm going to be speaking a little bit about USC football, and Jake's going to be the featured speaker. He's the one getting the Marv Goo Award. So, and apparently I'm going to be in his foursome. So he's got a better handicap than me, and he's blind. So I don't know. We'll see. There should be a lot of fun. But yeah, for him to be raising money for, helping with this research, a device that exists now that's being trialed out and everything. If it was around 10 years ago when he could have saved his sight. So it's something that's really important to him. I ended up pledging. I think I did $10 a rep, and that the thing said, he expected to get 20, so he got 17, but it's pretty cool. So I think he raised over $40,000 in the last couple of weeks, and you see his Instagram stories where he's like 60 days out. He kept working out and everything. So one of the coolest stories ever. Like the dude has done more as a blind 12-year-old than all of us will do in our lives. So it's pretty amazing what he can accomplish and what he has, and I'm sure it's going to be some great things coming forward, of course.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing interesting out of Pro Day was the flip of Iman Marshall and Marvell Tell.
Yeah.
So NFL teams apparently are looking at Marvell Tell to play cornerback and looking at Iman Marshall to play safety, which I know some of you on the P will be delighted and say, I told you so time and time again.
Right.
Though I thought he had a great senior year as a cornerback regardless. I'm curious to see Marvell Tell as a cornerback if someone drafts him as that, and how long it takes him to get used to that position and the man-to-man coverage versus being out kind of on an island and floating around as a safety.
And he was good near the line of scrimmage. Like there's a lot of stuff that seemed very safety-like about Marvell Tell, and I'm sure the Peristyle is going to be talking about how bad the USC coaches are that they could screw these two guys up and everything. But I don't know. What did you think about that, Keely, that switch? Was that kind of surprising? Or?
Dan and I were talking about what does this mean about how USC wanted to use those two guys if they're now to the next level, they're thinking about switching them. And Dan was like maybe Biggie was more focused on playing corner than giving up that role to go to safety. But I don't know. It does force that question a little bit.
Yeah. Well, maybe they didn't want to, if you don't want to move in college, but when it comes to now you're going to make a paycheck and the people are going to pay you are like, you should do this. And you're like, okay.
Sounds good to me.
Well, you don't really have that at USC. So, and if you want to, we forgot to mention this too. If you want to tweet us, you can send at the hashtag @TunnelVision. We'll try to pull those up too. We got stuff coming from all over the place.
You want to send a carrier pigeon? We'll take that too.
Yeah. Can and, string kind of thing.
Everything.
But, a lot of ways to get your questions in.
Thank you, Eddie, so much for calling and for letting us. Oops, I'm unmuting you. My bad. For letting us put you on hold for 20 minutes.
Sorry about that, Eddie.
We have more callers. Do we want to go to callers? I know
Yeah.
on Facebook, on YouTube, they're not really feeling the love. We'll get to you guys soon. Don't worry about that.
If we get a rash of callers, I think we need to tackle. But we want to take. We have a new system too to get all the Facebook and YouTube questions
True.
in. So hopefully
it's popping. Let's go to Jim from Tennessee.
Ah,
If he's on the line.
Jim, you there?
Let me see. Jim, hello.
Hey, Ryan and Keely, Shotgun. Pleasure to speak with you.
So you are definitely from Tennessee. Where are you from in Tennessee, Jim?
Well, I'm actually from East Tennessee, where your wife's from, Ryan, but I'm a big Bill King listener. Listen to you on Bill King.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love Bill. He's great. So he does the Nashville market, right?
Yeah, and thanks for coming on with him.
Oh, anytime. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for calling in.
Two quick questions. One about the overall administration and one football question. What's going on with the administration? The president, Lynn Swan? Why does the basketball coach still have a job? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, knowing that the USC hired a president today, I think this starts the ball rolling in the direction that a lot of USC fans want it to go. How far will Carol Folt take things? How, she's going to have to scrutinize everything. And I think there's been so many problems in the athletic department. Anyone that's competent would come in and go, okay, we have to question what's going on here. So I think, Jim, it's early because she was just named the president today. She won't start till July 1st, but I think the ball is at least rolling. I think we're going in the right direction with that. I don't expect any sweeping changes right away, but maybe like what Shotgun said, she spends these next couple months to evaluate and then figures out some things. And when she starts, she makes a couple of moves. That would be a really great start for her. But we won't know until this summer sometime.
I also don't know if you're going to make athletic changes first. There's
Right.
academic stuff that comes first as a president of a school. I think that's going to be, the admission stuff, that's going to come way before. Now, part of that is athletics, but that type of stuff is going to come before you get into the athletic department and talk about, this coach needs to go or this coach needs to stay type of stuff.
But there have been a couple of FBI investigations involving the
True.
athletic department, so that there's those raising the level too. So, but she's got some work to do. What was the other question?
Yeah, my football question, guys. But question 1B, what is Clay Helton, Lynn Swan, and Enfeld's buyouts? I'd like to know that after my call's over in terms of a dollar figure. And no hoodoo here, but when are y'all going to figure out Lane Kiffin is the true successor to Pete Carroll, and y'all whiffed on not bringing Kiffin back? Love you guys.
Nice, thanks. There's a lot of it's funny, the Tennessee love for Lane Kiffin recently. Like when Tennessee would go before they hired Jeremy Pruitt, they would have welcomed him back after burning his jersey and stuff.
They burned everything that night.
They did.
Because I went to school in East Tennessee, Maryville College, so I was looking, and we went to party in Knoxville, and I just got to USC for grad school, I don't know, a couple months in, and I'm watching, I'm like, wait a second, I recognize that person from the rugby house. I'm like, oh, I see that person. And they were burning all kinds of stuff.
Oh, interesting.
They went full West Virginia on it.
I think Lane Kiffin's improved as a coach. Like, he was pretty immature when he was the Raiders coach, the Tennessee coach, and USC's coach. I think if you brought – I'm not saying you should. I think he's a better coach now. And we'll see. I think, he's trying to bring people to the FAU. Let's see. They had a really good first year, not as good the second year. But I think he'll get another opportunity. I think he's matured more as a coach. Buyout numbers, I don't have any idea about.
Unfortunately, you're at a private school, so we don't get to look at the contracts unless someone usually it's an agent will slip that type of information, but agents don't the contract information, but the agents don't usually slip buyout numbers in there unless it's really big and they want to show that look what I got him. Or
I think a Yahoo report said Clay Helton's was like $15 million, which seemed ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I've heard some numbers that could even be bigger than that. And the fact that he wasn't fired after 5 and 7, I'm not discounting that it's not a really big number like that. And that's something that maybe Carol Folt comes in and goes, wait, you had this kind of mediocre coach and no one was trying to hire him and you signed him to like some $15 million extra deal. Like, why would you do something like that? So, yeah, that could be one of those things. But it's we don't know for sure because it's a private university. But I think there was some sort of significant number there. Otherwise, Lynn Swan would have probably looked at firing Clay Helton after last year a little bit more seriously.
I don't know. Well, Lynn
I
Swan's still the wild card in the room.
Yeah.
At all times.
I don't think the buyout was the determining factor there.
I think it had to be a factor, but I don't know.
I don't know if it was the main one. I don't know. But thank you,
Jim. Great stuff.
For
Thanks,
the
man.
call. We have one more live call in the queue. Shall we go?
Yeah, might as well. And then we'll try to knock out a whole bunch of Facebook and,
and
YouTube questions. Sorry, guys.
So we have Jake from Salt Lake City. We're getting all over the U.S. today, which is kind of fun.
Nice.
If it will load. Hello, Jake.
How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for calling in. What's your question for the team?
So I was just wondering, do you guys think that that USC will have a better recruiting class than the 2020 class, or do you think it will be roughly the same?
I think it gets
as
better
past year
because I think last year is a bit of an aberration. Now, because of two things. One, either you're going to win more, and people are going to, the Southern California kids especially are going, okay, they're going in the right direction. Or you're going to fire Clay Helton, and the kid's going to be like, oh, new coach. I'm excited about the new coach.
Exactly.
So I think last year is a bit of an aberration in that fact, and I think USC's recruiting staff learned, that some of the stuff they did last year, that they had done a couple years prior, is not going to work when you go 5 and 7. and that, hey, there's an early signing period. We got to pick up our pace. We got to be offering kids sooner. We got to be on kids more during the season. The addition of Greg Burns has been, he's been really going out after kids and stuff. So I think you made a couple of upgrades there as far as recruiting wise. So I think it's going to be better. Now, if USC is still, if they're 8-4 or something, it's still not going to be a great USC class, top 5 like people expect at USC. However, it's going to be better than 20?
Yeah, 20 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with the Shotgun on that one, and it's one of those things where it's going to be hard for USC to have that bad of a class again. If like he said, if they're bad, you're going to get rid of the coach, and you'll probably bring in a pretty good class. And if they're good, then it'll probably be better than what it is now. But that was a historically bad class to be ranked 20th and 3rd in the Pac-12. Like, that's never happened before. So a lot of things that never happened, and for a reason. And I don't think you're going to find a coach or a program that's in like purgatory like it was after last year. So there's so many uncertainties. I don't think you could have those same kind of uncertainties this year. You're either going to be, all right, Clay Helton turned it around, they won the Pac-12 or something, or he's not there anymore.
And you're always going to have talent in Southern California. Now, USC's still going to get some of those guys, even if they, excuse me, there were a couple of players in the class that probably could have went somewhere else and might have been better for their career trajectory, but they loved USC, so they came to USC. You're always going to have that. You got that built-in recruiting base in Southern California where there's so much talent. So I think that USC is going to be in the top 15 this year. How high up that list will depend on how the season goes.
Yeah, and I think you have Bryce Young, you have a 5-star quarterback in the class. That always helps. That's a big recruit. Instead of a 3-star quarterback, you have a 5-star guy. And, the loss of Eric Ziskin that we reported over the weekend, that's a big loss because of the support staff. But it seems like Clay Helton has tried to address that, and they're hiring more people on the support staff, which is they've been woefully understaffed for a long time. We've reported that many, many times, and they don't seem to do anything about it. They lost basically the director of it, the guy that was running everything. Now they're going to bring in some more people, and I think just having more bodies there will help because you need that support staff to support these guys recruiting. I think you have more recruiters on the staff than you did before. So overall, I think, like Shaka, there's a lot of reasons why it shouldn't be as bad as last year's.
Thank you, Jake, for the call. That does it for our live calls right now.
Yeah, you can keep calling in, but we'll...
Yeah, you can keep calling in. We just went through the blitz of live calls there. We have a Facebook question from Chris. He says, do you have any hesitation of Carroll coming from UNC where they've had their fair share of scandals?
I think, and this was a question that Lewis asked, and I think got answered for him on YouTube, but the academic scandal that they had occurred right before she got there. I think those, the NCAA investigation started in 2012. Forgive me if I'm getting a couple dates wrong, but she started in 2013. I think it was the NCAA investigation that started then. But that's when it came out, 2012. 2013 is when she was officially hired. So she started after the investigation had already, the top had been blown off of it. So the other scandal was a Confederate statue scandal. And,
right.
That's
a pretty unique situation.
Yeah, that's not something that, is going to happen at USC.
Yeah.
We did get a question, though, about Traveler, because Traveler's name comes from, I'm just saying.
The horse will be okay.
Don't mess with don't mess with the Song Girls and don't mess with Traveler.
Unless they
one has already been messed with.
Unless they taxidermy Traveler and put him up or something, then I think that would be an issue.
If Carol if Carol Folt comes in and goes, you know what, the first thing I'm going to do is reinstate the Song Girls to basketball games, like everyone would say, bad. Like I don't know, could she do anything else that would win over people faster than that? Like.
Lower tuition.
Yeah. USC did just announce a tuition hike of 3.5%.
Great PR, especially when it was supposed to be embargoed till Tuesday. They released it on Monday in the midst of all the admissions and academic scandals. Yeah, great timing there.
Yeah, it wasn't and a lot of people were writing in saying, like, well, this was already planned and blah, blah, blah. And
doesn't matter.
And they
push it back.
Yeah, I mean, but if you had a president, they probably could. That it just shows the kind of leadership voice. Someone in there would be like, this isn't the right time to say there's going to be a
even if it was April 20th or April 8th or something like that. Do it on April 8th. That's a Monday. That is national championship game. Do it that day. People aren't going to be paying attention as much. And it's also 5 weeks removed or 4 weeks removed from the scandal coming out rather than 5 days removed, basically.
People are saying that they're like people are starting to pick their courses and stuff. You need
don't care. Don't care. Push it back.
I just think don't just don't do one this year.
Oh, they're definitely not going to do that. They're going to get that money.
Yeah.
Get that bread. We have another Facebook question from Kingsley. He says, is the transfer portal available at any time or only certain months?
Transfer portal is open at all times.
Yeah, I believe so.
Now, you can put your name in there, or the school puts your name in there. When you can actually transfer, when you can actually sign with another program, that's kind of the deal, because you become a recruitable athlete then. So then you have certain windows, like you have the early signing period, you have National Signing Day, those type of things. There's certain things for transfers. I don't have the dates necessarily in front of me, but there's certain times where you can sign with someone.
Yeah, there's like recruitable periods and stuff. But like when you're in the portal, you can go take visits and all that kind of stuff. It's like you became a recruit all over again. But thanks, Kingsley, for the question.
And he's a loyal watcher, so thank you.
Thanks, Kingsley. Yeah, thanks for being. We do love the loyal watchers. Like it's cool. Like there's a lot of people that watch this on replay because we put it up on Facebook and we put it up on YouTube and USCFootball.com, of course. But it's really cool to get you guys live and the interaction stuff, because that's what makes the show. It's fun.
Yeah, it's weird because I memorized some of the like random YouTube names, like Loser or like One Blue Love or something like. Yeah. So we actually have another caller on the line, which is fun.
Yes.
Another
this
state
is what I wanted
as well. Jason from Georgia. Hello.
Oh, Georgia.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. What's your question for the team?
Well, I'm a believer that the head coach sets the tone for the rest of the coaches and for the team. So I was just wondering, like, from the past practices you've seen so far this season, do you notice any change in Clay, like his demeanor or anything like that?
I've only been to one practice, so it's hard for me to say.
I've been to one too. The first day, it did look like Clay Helton was more boisterous. Like he was yelling more, and some of it felt like it was. Maybe I don't want to say it's not genuine, but it was a little bit out of character for some of the things that he was saying. But it did seem the vibe definitely seemed different to me. I don't know, Keely, you've been to all of them, right? So what's
except for the Saturday of Shotgun's wedding. But yes, it seemed like the first week, Helton was definitely kind of like the mean guy a little bit, the enforcer, if you will, which is funny. I don't know how much that translates, just because we all know Clay Helton is really nice and he's
the nice guy,
that you're the friend of the players. So I think his demeanor changed in that sense, but I don't know if I recognize that same tough guy attitude on yesterday, and especially if Shotgun's not mentioning anything about that, because that's something that you definitely noticed, especially on the first day of spring practice. So yes, we've seen different things, but I don't know how much of a true change we will see.
But I think you're right though about a lot you take on that kind of personality of your head coach, but some of it's how you're acting, and I think he's acting a little bit different. I think the direction that he's trying to point people, it's a little bit different direction, and I think he has some different coaches around him that kind of will help shape that. So I don't think you're going to see business as usual. We'll see if this ends up working, but I feel like the chemistry is different. I mean, I think the culture's changed a little bit. There's, having like a Graham Harrell running things and having Clay Helton be more of a CEO. I think there's definitely some changes there. I don't think he's wholesale changing himself, and that wouldn't be genuine.
Yeah.
But I think he's made some. So for your question, I think it's kind of getting directed in a little bit different direction.
And he's got on guys before, and he'll get on the whole team when there's fisticuffs or stuff. There's, he's done that before, so it's not like it's completely out of character. I once had a coach that tried to be mean, and we almost laughed at him in his face, because that's not who you are.
Right.
I mean, you can punish us, but you can't come and swear at us and stuff. That's not who you are. Clay will get on them, so it's not like he's completely out of character. It's not like he's always Mr. Bubbly or anything. But I think that if you're going to be the CEO, you have to point those things out. When someone's doing good, you point it out. But when someone's doing bad, you have to be, the loudest guy in the room or the loudest guy at the field. So we'll see how that continues throughout the spring, and if the players are responding to it, or if you see an eye roll or something, if Clay is yelling or something like that. So I don't think we've seen that necessarily, but that would be something you would have to watch for.
We had, real quick on.
Thank you, Jason, for the call.
Yeah,
we
thanks,
appreciate
Jason.
It.
On Periscope, we have World Brand says hi from Japan. So hey, that's awesome. And then Banshee. Besides basketball at UNC, how were the sports programs run under Folt? Well, I mean, she's the president, so it's not like she's like the athletic director, running those things. But basketball's king. I think they just hired. It wasn't under her. But maybe they did hire. Did they hire Mac Brown when she was there? I guess he was hired, right?
No, because she left in
January.
No,
she left in January.
Yeah,
so
that sounds right.
Maybe he was hired then.
I don't remember.
I don't know, but she's the president, so it's not like she's running the athletic programs, but she's like overseeing all of that stuff.
I mean, the baseball team has been pretty consistently good. They struggled a couple of last years, but they were, in the College World Series. I think at the beginning of her tenure. Women's basketball is always good at North Carolina as well. So their soccer program, women's soccer, has been one of the best, in the nation. So I think they're doing fine. I mean, they went to the College World Series in 2013 and 2018 for baseball. So they made the tournament all but 2 years there. So
yeah, I mean, I think she's been positive on the athletic side, so that's a good sign. But thank you for those questions. Thanks for the Periscope. Give us little likes on the Periscopes and the Facebooks and the
Facebooks and
the YouTubes. Give us some likes, like some. I like to see the little hearts go by. It's fun.
We have another question on Facebook from OJ Mo, who says, "What are your thoughts on Clay Matthews returning to LA to play at the Coliseum as a Ram?"
Good for him, and I think he took actually a pay cut to do that because he has a home out here, and it's home to him. So hopefully the Rams have another successful season.
He's got multiple family members out here, brothers and stuff, and I think a sister. So like that's pretty cool that he's coming back. So probably, would it be the last couple of years, I guess, or
of his career?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, 2 years. He probably still has 3 or 4 in him, I would guess, without a significant injury.
David Gold on Facebook says, "Have we picked up anyone in the portal?"
Not that we know of.
No.
There's no one. No one new at practice or anything.
I guess sort of. Greg Johnson was in the portal and withdrew, so it's like sort of like getting somebody from the portal, but
returned someone from the portal.
Right. So we do on 24/7 Sports. If you just Google like USC transfer portal 24/7, like we have the guys that are in there, and it shows them, and it'll show you like SC and then an arrow to which school they're going to, and sometimes it's a question mark, so you don't know where they're going to. But for Greg Johnson, it's a arrow to USC, so he basically transferred back to USC.
But he doesn't have to sit out a year.
No, he's not transferring. He just withdrew. And Clay Helton could have cut him off and said you can't come back, but obviously he didn't do that. Maybe you see Velus Jones, something like that. He could come back at some point.
Velus Jones was on campus today. He was sitting. There's basically a portal party.
Portal party.
That's what we dubbed it.
Josh Motorbebe, Velus, and Trayvon Sidney were all sitting together with some other players. I mean, there was a bunch of USC players there.
Was Keely Ross there or no?
Keely Ross was also there today. He was not sitting in that same group, though. So
he should have joined the portal party.
I know. But, there were several guys that have not transferred elsewhere, so it's not impossible for them to come back. Now, whether USC's coaching staff allows them back would be a different thing. Obviously, Velus is an interesting situation. There's the health of a family member is what we believe it to be, the reason why he may need to transfer closer to home. So who knows how that plays out. But he was back on campus. He went back to Saraland, Alabama for spring break, according to his social media accounts. But he was back on campus today. So
nice. Did you guys see Daniel Amato-Rebe out there?
He was not out there. I saw Josh, but not Daniel.
And he's not been at practice either, right?
No.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. We have another live caller on the line.
Yes, we are crushing the live calls.
Yeah, well done, guys. Thank you for calling. We have Sam from Torrance on the line. Hello, Sam.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
What's your question for the team?
I'm wondering what their take on Tim Drevno is. I mean, he's been flying under the radar now for a couple of years, and I just would like to know what their thoughts are about him. I mean, he's got quite a record. He's been around. Never hear anything about him. Never hear about recruiting with him or anything. So what's your take on that?
We got a local guy, Torrance, and Tim Drevno is a South Bay guy. I believe he went to high school in El Segundo.
South High School.
Yeah, it was at South High School in Torrance.
South
okay,
High.
Yeah. So he's from your neck of the woods.
Went to school with my kids.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. One of my friends actually went to school with him too. And I think he got bullied a little bit by him in school. But
wow. Spilling some tea on tunnel vision, Ryan.
No, he was a swimmer and Tim was a football player. But they're friends on Facebook, so I don't think there was any issues. But
Ryan.
No, I mean, I think there was a lot of talk about him last year because he came in and was pretty much coaching out of position, coaching the running backs and stuff. And people felt like he was going to be the offensive line coach in waiting, which those people were right because he was the offensive line coach in waiting. He's taking that over now. I think he's pretty active on the recruiting front. I think, a little bit different approach when you watch practice. Now, it's hard to see those guys, to see the drills, because the offensive linemen are as far away from us as you could possibly be on the field. But talking to some of the players, seemed like, they had a lot of positive things to say about him coming in. I think it's a guy that relates to the players a little bit more. So I'm expecting some bigger things out of the offensive line this year. We just weren't sure because he doesn't really have any experience with the air raid system. Splits are a little bit wider, but they still do a lot of the zone read concepts, which that's what kind of his strengths are.
And previous players that have had multiple offensive line coaches at USC, ones that have been coached by Tim Drevno, I've had a couple of them tell me Tim Drevno was their favorite one.
Yeah.
Because he would take what they were good at and focus on that and help them, improve themselves that way, rather than forcing them into one set way of doing things. He would basically see what they do and then, okay, we can work with this way or that way. Talked to Mike Jinks yesterday. He told me it doesn't get as good as that as far as offensive line play goes, talking about Tim Drevno. So we'll lean a lot on him for protections and run game schemes and things of that nature. So if they were worried about his ability to comprehend the air raid, I don't think it's an issue from that quote right there.
Yeah.
And Brett Nealon talked about how for centers, it's really important where they are placing the ball. It's a huge emphasis this spring. They said that Brett said that Tim is tracking every single snap and where it goes, and they watch film of it the next day after practice. And he said that he's a stickler about it, and it really will have a determination of who the starting center will be, not just seniority or whatnot. So that's something
that's a good sign.
That's new. It's a good sign. We saw some big sleds. Like they had, I don't know how to describe it, that big yellow sled. You weren't there. Big yellow sled on Tuesday. That's something kind of new that we're seeing. So I think from all accounts so far, it seems like Tim Drevno is good for the O-line.
And I will say the Jinx quote that I read you guys, that was unprompted. I asked him about something completely different, about relaying messages from Graham Harrell being at the top of the baseball stadium, and he brought up Tim Drevno. So that tells you what he thinks of Drevno, at least so far.
Yeah, and I do like that as far as he's not going to tolerate poor snaps. And I feel like a lot of people that came down hard on JT Daniels, he was searching for the ball all over the place. Keely put that one video up of him getting all those different snaps. I don't think that's going to be tolerated now. If one center was doing that guy wouldn't be the center anymore.
Sorry, I was just going to say, which makes you kind of question, Tim Drevno was already on the staff when that was happening. Why couldn't that been instituted earlier? I don't know.
Tim Drevno did not overstep his bounds with that. We were kind of wondering, like, hey, if he sees something as the run game coordinator, is he going to step in and, not push Neil Callaway over the way, but overrule him? And you never saw that in practice.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they needed that. I don't know. Maybe you needed a coach's fist fight on the field. That would have been something. That would have been something new at least.
Been different.
Keely and I always complain about that the practices always seem the same. So that would have been different.
Yeah, but I wasn't suggesting coaches.
I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying it would have been different and would have been entertaining. So we've got some other questions on YouTube about the offensive line.
Thanks, Sam, for calling in.
Yeah, thank you, Sam.
So Dakers earlier asked Ryan Shotgun any questions about the O-line getting worn down during games this year. I think that's a little bit more of a concern this year than it was last year, at least, because you don't have as many bodies. You lost 3 seniors off the offensive line. You lost, guys that were really good like Chuma Adoga. Chris Brown was really good last year. He was the best offensive lineman they had. Now you got to replace those with some younger guys. Can Jalen McKenzie fill in? If not, they basically have 7 guys that I think they are comfortable with right now. And last year I felt like they probably had 9 to 10 guys that were comfortable. Now we'll see if it's different in the
fall. They got to grow that list. They definitely have to grow that list. But if they don't, and you really have a shorter bench, then it's going to be a concern because guys are going to get dinged up, they're going to get hurt, and you're going to be playing the entire time. I think they need to establish that. There's still 15 guys on scholarship. I just think that the top end isn't as big as it was before. So you got to grow that a little bit.
And last year you had a guy, even a guy that didn't play much, Jordan Austin, that could fill in a couple different spots. So you got to find that Mr. Versatility as well, because you always need one of those, because you never make it through a season without an offensive lineman getting injured. You never make it through a season without a running back getting injured. So you have to have depth at those positions. So that's kind of a concern, I think, right now, at least, because I don't know if Jalen McKenzie is ready to be your right tackle. I don't know if Elijah Vera Tucker is ready to be, your left guard. And if those guys are now inserted in the lineup, who's that next line where you think, okay, they probably can fill in? That's what you thought about those guys last year. Now who's there? Is Jacob Daniel ready to play? We haven't seen him. He hasn't had he has a handful of offensive snaps, I believe. Is that guy ready? Is Clayton Johnston going to come back? He wasn't practicing yesterday, so is his back injury going to keep him from being in the rotation? Those type of things. So I think there definitely are some concerns there. LDR also want to know about the physicality of the offense defense line. We haven't seen them be in full pads yet. Unless Keely were there in full pads on the
They were
Saturday?
on Saturday. None of us were there for that practice because we were at
It's all shotgun
his
stall.
wedding.
Whoa, I don't know what you're talking about. So
still denying he got married.
So we'll see, as the scrimmages pick up, the next couple of Saturdays, what do we see there? And how do they carry that through? Because there is the depth issues, not really on the line, so.
Right.
We're concerned about the game depth of the offensive line, but there are bodies there that you can go against each other. It's not like the receivers and cornerbacks going, you got 3 guys that can go on each side that are scholarship guys at times. So, I think they'll be able to, if they have an injury, they can still go, and you could have more run periods potentially in these scrimmages this spring, and I think that's going to be huge. They need to get that they need to establish that physicality.
Yeah.
They need to do more run periods, whatever it takes to get better, in the trenches.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And, there was a picture on social media going around from an old USC practice with Steve Sarkisian was the head coach, but it was like an Oklahoma drill. They were talking about something about football players and hating fall camp and not missing it, but you want to see some stuff like that. You want to see some like 9-on-7 goal line stuff. Yeah, they got a lot of bodies on the offensive defensive lines. You can let those guys bash heads a little bit this spring, so hopefully they can do that.
We have another caller on the line.
Yes.
Darren from LA. I believe you are going to be on the line soon. It's not clicking. Okay, there we go. Darren.
Am I on?
Yes, hello,
Hey,
Darren.
Darren.
How's it going?
Okay. Excellent. Thanks so much. Hey, big props on the show and the new technology. It's awesome. Even like the robot voice guy at the beginning. Pretty cool.
Nice.
Anyway, I know I'm a SC alum and on the Traveler crew. I protect Keely so she doesn't get run over
Why, thank
when
you.
she's on the field.
I appreciate it.
Thanks,
It happens
Darren.
sometimes.
But now we're on to the 80 carousel, and I wanted to get Ryan's opinion because he has Ryan's rules. So here's the candidate I want to throw out there and get everyone's opinion on. Martin Germont from Boston College. He's a young guy. He played basketball in college. He worked at Michigan State for 6 years. He worked at Ohio State for 8 years. Went to number 2 in the athletic department before BC hired him. He's an awesome dude with a lot of energy. He's African American. We should poach that dude. What do you think?
Interesting, Darren. Thanks for the call.
Thanks
yeah,
for
I
the
mean,
call, and thank you for
he's
keeping
got
me safe,
experience and he doesn't know the fight song. Now, USC doesn't have an opening right now, so they're making a lot of presumptions here. But someone like that, I think, would be.
Ryan stole my answer.
Yeah, I think it would be very. I've not researched him at all. I'd have to take a look. But someone that's worked in major athletic departments and was up to number 2, then gets hired at BC. I think they've done some pretty good things.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing better, I would guess. Steve Adazio's done a pretty good job there. The basketball team's not great. It's also a tough place to recruit to at times, and you're not having the fertile grounds that you do of Southern California in Boston. Someone threw out a name to me today, Tom Eure, who was the AD at Louisville, who's done a really good job with their sports there. And I said, well, he's not a former USC football star. So as of now, he can't be a candidate. So, and plus, there's no opening. So that's my.
There is no opening, but yes, thanks for the.
Thank you
that
for
would
the
pass my
call.
criteria because I'm really going to keep it simple going forward when you got to make a hire because USC hasn't been able to follow just those simple rules.
Keep it simple, stupid. Right?
Kiss, just like the USC offense right now.
We have a question on YouTube from Big Bumbo 22. He says, "Who is the best running back on the roster right now?"
Ooh, I think a lot of people would say Vi. Do you think so?
I think a lot of people would still say Stephen Carr because they've seen what he can do. They've seen the
The
flashes.
potential.
I would say Stephen Carr, but I know a lot of people that even the cover of the team, like they're just kind of like, well, I haven't seen him do that for a couple of years, so I'm going to say Vavae Malpai. But my guess is Stephen Carr's going to have a really good year.
Mike Jinks told me that before too long, he didn't say this season, he said before too long, a USC running back will catch 60 to 70 balls.
Nice.
Wow.
That
Look
would
at
be Stephen Carr.
Yeah.
That's a guy you
It
could
could
split
be.
out.
But Vi has good hands.
Yeah.
True, but Stephen Carr you can split out as a receiver and he can beat guys. He's that good as a receiver. I watched him so many times in 7-on-7 where 7-on-7 running backs don't do much. You run a little angle route. Every once in a while they hand the ball up to you. So they would split him out because he's their best player. and he would beat guys, beat legit cornerbacks, because there's always really good cornerbacks in Southern California. He would beat guys. He's that good. Now, is the body back? Is the explosiveness back there that we didn't see last year? I know he says, he told you the first day of practice, yes, I'm 100%. Yes, there's no issues. The explosiveness still wasn't there last year. And if he doesn't want to admit it, he doesn't have to admit it, but everyone could see that there just wasn't that breakaway.
Yeah.
Now, part of it was he's getting hit in the backfield a lot. That doesn't help. There were times when they were screenplays calling like, oh, that's a good call. Oh, wait, no one blocked anyone. So Stephen Carr got hit behind the line of scrimmage. He made the first guy miss, couldn't do anything after that. So, I think in this offense, he can shine if that explosiveness is there.
Big Bumbo, thanks for the question. And I think the combination of him being healthier and a better scheme is probably going to mean he's going to catch 60, 70 balls, like Mike Jinks said.
LDR has a pressing question that he's asked multiple times.
Sorry,
he says,
LDR.
have you guys noticed more physical practices?
I already asked that. Now you're the one not paying attention.
I have a little bit more going on than you do, Sean.
Lies and slander.
So we already asked that? We already answered that? Sorry.
We didn't get to see the one padded practice, so it's hard for this group to
Oh, that's
say.
what that was. I missed that beginning part. Important. You'd think so. Let's go to a question from Julie on Facebook.
Keely's got 3 screens going, by the way. So
I have
she's
4. So
4, yeah.
Julie says, any thoughts on the timing of the announcement of the president? Start date is July 1st, which makes me feel like the announcement was forced. As with the announcement of a tuition increase, it seems strange. Diversion on the part of the trustees. Did the scandal hasten the selection process?
I think you've waited long enough that I don't think you
Yeah.
feel like it's forced now after all the other stuff that's gone on. I don't think that now you're like, oh, we got to get one out. We got to figure it out.
What I was told in the beginning was like you kind of expect March. So I mean, I was sort of thinking that maybe they were not they weren't going to announce it earlier. There was, like we said earlier, there was a couple of posters on the peristyle. We have a lot of insiders that will post on the USCFootball.com message boards. Her name came up a couple times. People were doing some hints the last couple of weeks. So I think that's who they pretty much focused on. They said it was a unanimous vote when they voted her in. Maybe they weren't going to announce it for, another week or two. Who knows? But the scandal sort of, accelerated that a little bit. I don't think it changed the selection. I don't think they just picked somebody at the end because the scandal happened. But maybe that just, when they announced it, that changed a little bit.
We'll see.
Thanks for the question, though, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Truck Ranger says, are they going to run the RPO? If so, will the R be silent?
No, they'll run the RPO.
That's my joke.
They'll run the RPO. I mean, that's part of that system. You're going to run the read option off of it, and if the pass is there, you throw it. Yeah, so they'll run the RPO. That's part of the air raid system.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that the quarterback's going to run.
Right. It could be other,
It's an RPO, give to the running back or pass the ball option.
Just to change the subject, sorry. I'm just curious your thoughts because you heard what was happening on the first week of practice. You didn't see anything, and then you showed up on Tuesday. What was your general impressions from what you saw?
I like the fact that Graham Harrell's up top, that he's making adjustments on the fly type of thing there. It seemed like a pretty standard practice. There wasn't a lot of different things, as far as changes and stuff like that. A lot of quick work. As far as the offense, you're going to see a lot of quick passes thrown out. That's a staple of the offense. You saw a lot of that, working on that and working on reads. Graham Harrell would be out there with a pad. He would be a defender. He'd run, and the quarterbacks would have to read what he was doing and then make a throw. And he was getting upset at them sometimes. They weren't making the right reads or they weren't making the throws when they did make the read. So I think all those things are positives from what little I saw, in one practice. I think the offense – it looks like it's going the right direction.
Right. That's the thing you kind of notice is like, oh, the offense seems competent. Like that. It just didn't. You weren't really sure of what was going on. You're like, I just feel like this is a decent scheme and is probably going to do pretty well going forward. So there's some reason for optimism there. It's like almost the same talent pool, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And you're just. It's like you have the same cards, but you're assembling a better hand somehow. So, and I think that's what USC is going to do with this better scheme.
We have a question from Jasper Smith. He says, of the 2019 opponents that USC will face, which QB scares you the most besides Justin Herbert of Oregon?
They don't face Jacob Eason, so that would have been my pick. I think the Washington offense.
No, they play Washington. Yeah.
My bad. Jacob Eason then. Sorry. I think the Washington offense is going to be much better with him than Jake Browning. I just didn't think that Jake Browning had the arm strength to drive balls in when he needed to. I think Eason does. Eason has played in the SEC. He has that experience, so he's not like he's going to go into something and be scared of a situation or anything. I think he's the guy that I think that Pac-12 North is going to be really interesting. We got another question about that right after. Who do you think is going to win the Pac-12 North? I think it's between those two teams. How far can Oregon come from last year? They looked really good to begin with, but they fell off really hard towards the end.
And the offense wasn't very good. Everyone talked about Justin Herbert. You just assume he's the best, but people talk about him being a top 5 pick. He didn't look like that at the end of the year. Now, he has got all the measurables. He looks like.
Early in the year, though, he made some throws that drew eyeballs.
Right.
So I think that, and who knows, and since I'm not watching their games, I don't know how many of those games you got to watch for the Pac-12 podcast, but it could be similar to, I think JT Daniels got banged up in that Stanford game, and it hurt his confidence because he got beat up in that game. He was getting thrown on the ground, hit a lot, and that's hard for a young quarterback. Now, Herbert's a little bit older, but that can still happen with a quarterback. You get beat up because your offensive line, and Oregon lost some offensive linemen, including Penei Sewell, their left tackle. If you get beat up, you start making different reads. You start getting rid of the ball a half a second earlier than you need to. You start fearing that hit. Getting hit hurts, especially when guys are Porter Gustin size. There's pads and stuff, but it doesn't feel good. I don't know if the guys that have played football can tell you that are on these chat streams, but it hurts. Yeah. You don't like to do it. Now, when you're giving it to somebody else, it feels a lot better.
True.
Jasper, real quick, I would say watch out for Khalil Tate at Arizona because I just feel like he just had a subpar year last year. I feel like they're going to figure things out with him, and he's going to be that sort of dynamic, scary dude that he was in 2017, where he was this unstoppable force, at least for like a month. I think you're going to see more from him. So he might be a scary guy on USC's schedule.
Someone else said JT Daniels is the one that scares them the most.
Interesting take on that question.
Okay.
While we are on the topic of 2019, we actually have a Twitter question.
Yes.
From @Ladera Dude. He says, question/comment. I'd like for Shotgun and Ryan to give a bold prediction for this upcoming football season. Not a likely thing that would happen, but an out-of-the-box prediction like 2-10 or going 10-2.
Well, I mean,
so you
want us to make a prediction, but you want it to be outrageous and not really what we think.
He wanted bold. I don't know, Steve. What do you want?
Yeah, you got to make a bold prediction. We can't show the whole thing. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
So
if you're going to use if you use the hashtag tunnel vision, we have to kind of make it a more compact question to fit on our screen for some reason. We'll figure that out. That's just something else we were playing with. I mean, right now I'm feeling like it's going to be. My gut says like 8-4, but I'll go bold prediction and say 9-3. I think they're going to be simpler on defense. It looks like the front's going to be a little bit different, where you got I think a Christian Rector is going to come in and play a lot better with his hand on the ground, and I just think the offense is going to be so much better when it's going to be competently run. I'll give you the 10-2. You want something bold? That'll be a 10-2, and that's pretty optimistic, but that's what I'm going to say.
If you want a bold prediction, this is not what I would normally pick, but I would go Pac-12 champions.
Wow,
Ooh,
that's bold.
Coming off of 5-7, Pac-12 champs.
I mean, just look at it now. You knew this was a very talented team. I don't think it's going to be as talented as last year, but I think they're going to play a lot better. It's just what I'm looking at right now. Now, things could go wrong, and it's a tough first part of the schedule, and you could get off the rails and things like that. But it just seems like doing things better, and it's going to be smarter. It's just going to be better run, and I think that they'll have better results because of that.
I think just putting the talent on offense in a system that actually works, and that is a system and not like a gumbo offense, will just do so much better. I just think it's so interesting listening to Graham Harrell talk about this offense. He said they only install in thirds, and basically the install is done the first week. You do one third on Tuesday, 1/3 on Thursday, 1/3 on Saturday, and then they're done. And he was like, I don't think the players really believe me at first when I said that. And he's like, now they're starting to believe me. He said the goal here is to just make them do each play a million times so that they know what they're doing. And I think that for USC, if you're talented enough, that can pay off really well if you go into a game and you know what you're doing, rather than, okay, this play, memorizing this. That's what JT Daniels said. It makes everyone involved with the offense have an easier job, an easier task to do at the line of scrimmage. So I think that helps.
Yeah, I think if there's complexity for the sake of it, I don't think there's, if you were some genius and you had this complexity added to it, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But I just feel like it was complex for whatever reason. Now it's simple it's going to be simpler on defense. you probably see more guys rotate in. It's going to be simpler on offense for sure, and you have a really good plan in place there and a good general running thing. So I agree with you, Keely. I think it's gonna pay dividends.
Ivan wanted to know, since you brought up, did we come up with the gumbo line, or did one of the coaches use the word gumbo?
We actually addressed this on the podcast
Yeah,
this week.
it was T. Martin actually is the one that coined the phrase, but I don't know if he meant like if he realized it was going to
spiral out of control,
take a life of its own.
But I think to be fair, there was a lot of people critical of T. Martin, fire him. And I was like, I don't think he's. I've always said I don't think he's running the offense. He didn't create the offense. It's not like he's running it. He's calling the plays, but it is a little bit of mess and a little bit of everything. And now it's not. Now it's very defined, and you have one system, and this is what you're going to run. I think that's going to pay dividends.
Oh, Ladera dude followed up. He said it didn't have to be a record. It could be winning the conference or having a player go to New York for the Heisman.
Oh,
thanks
nice.
for taking the question.
No, yeah, thanks, Ladera. Yeah, I think Shotgun did that by saying.
Well done, Shotgun.
I think if they go 10-2, they're going to win the Pac-12 also, but at least win the South.
We actually have another Twitter question.
I do have a bold prediction from 2 years ago still. That Stephen Carr would be.
Oh, that's this year.
Would be
That's
a Heisman
2019
finalist as a junior.
Oh, so you might as well go with that.
Well, you locked yourself into that.
I'm okay with it.
We have another Twitter question from @WorldBrand. Tunnel Vision from Japan. Great show. What are your thoughts on USC's defense shifting to a true four-man front?
I heard they had what's it called? Why am I blanking on it? I just mentioned his name.
Christian Rector.
Christian Rector. Holy crap! It sucks to get old. I heard Christian Rector on their Trojans Live that they had. Man, I can't even speak right now. I guess we've just been going over an hour. He seemed a lot more confident. Now, is he the most vocal guy in the world? No, but he's got high IQ, football IQ. I think he's going to embrace that role well. It's the Predator position was sort of like the Porter Gustin position, and it was hard when he wasn't in there to make it kind of work through other things. I just feel like he's going to be comfortable, and I think you can put a guy across from him like a Connor Murphy or somebody, or even a Drake Jackson. I think that's going to work for the personnel they have. That position seemed you had to kind of like this unique skill set to kind of play it. I think now with a four-man front, they're pretty deep on the defensive line. I think it's going to work out pretty well.
I still don't know exactly how they're going to use that other side, though, from Rector. Rector's going to have his hand down. He said that he's going to play basically a true defensive end, nickel defensive end. But what are they going to do with the other side? I didn't really pay enough attention to it yesterday to get a full understanding. Because they moved those guys inside, the guys that were outside, like ISF, and some of those guys. Oh, do they put a true defensive end over there? Or is there still a stand-up guy as a Sam? Exactly how are they going to use it? I think that's something we're still going to learn as the spring goes on. So I don't know if it'll be the true four-man front or if it'll be that hybrid that we saw when Porter Gustin got injured, especially 2 years ago when Christian Rector first took over that spot. So I'm not sure exactly how it is, if it's going to be that true four-man front or not.
And WorldBred, very good, very well done on the hashtag Tunnel Vision question. It was kind of short and it fits in our little thing there, so perfect.
Well done.
Thanks.
That's
our best looking one we've had, so good job.
Well done.
From Japan, that's like
from Japan. We have a Facebook question from Mike Connolly. He says, "What are your thoughts on John Houston's move to the middle? He was a bit light last season."
Yeah. So Dan Weber saying he's 222 pounds. I wrote a story on him like 2 weeks ago, and it's still being talked about on the Peristyle. Like people are.
It's a hot issue.
It's a very hot topic about him doing that. Now he was like the second leading tackler on the team. I feel like he's sort of getting a bad rap, Shotgun. But there's some people just like, I don't like him. He's not big enough.
There's no defender. I don't know. Like going back, like Leonard Williams is the last guy who didn't get criticized harshly on defense. He's the last guy.
Yeah.
Cam Smith, he's not fast enough. He doesn't have enough lateral movement. The guy has led the team in tackles almost for 4 years, but he's not good enough for anybody. Now, maybe that's telling you that they haven't had that, that first round, top round guy. But I think Leonard Williams is the last guy where people are like, that guy's really good. He's really good. Now, occasionally people will be like, Iman Marshall's playing really well right now. But then immediately there's 6 other comments that are, well, he needs to move to safety. He grabs too much. He holds. If he was in a different conference, he's not. He's playing in this conference. He played really well last year. His PFF numbers were really, really good. A guy like Cameron Smith, his numbers were really good. And people maybe go a little silent on some of those guys. Like, he's fine. He's fine. But nobody's like, that guy's really good. Uchenna, when his senior year or his junior year, that was it. Before that, I don't know about this guy. He's undersized. He was a safety. I don't think anyone on the P is ever happy with a defensive player. and especially a defensive back.
Yeah.
Because you give up one play in the season, and you get burned all the time.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I'd like to see him, put on a few pounds. He's had, a long career there and hasn't really put on a ton of weight, but I feel like he's going to do pretty well in that role. But there's certainly a lot of criticism. We'll watch him throughout the spring and see how he
also he's got to make plays because if he doesn't, he's got people coming behind him.
Yeah,
like Solomon Tuliaupupu.
Yeah, I think Solomon, as long as his foot continues to be healthy, I think you got Jordan Iosefa working in the middle also. So I mean, there's some guys there. There's definitely some depth. So if you don't like the way he's playing, if the coaches don't like the way he's playing, there's guys behind him that can play too.
Austin just brought up Adoree Jackson. Are we just going to skip over him? No, because people were saying his sophomore year he's not good. He's too small.
Yeah.
Is the Utah game because they had Mike Patrick? I think Tim Patrick, the big receiver. He got beat. I think 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
he's too small.
He slipped on the touchdown. His shoe came off.
Yeah,
and he won the Thorpe Award. People were like, people weren't all.
Yeah, he won the Thorpe Award. People were like, well, he won that because of his offense. Okay.
Special teams more, but yeah.
Okay, we have a pretty great tweet that we just got.
Oh, nice.
L. Yeager says, "What's your theme song? It doesn't Shazam." Ryan, explain what our theme song is to the youngins out there.
Yeah, so it's a band. Look up Foreigner. So Double Vision is the name of the song.
The real song.
The real song.
It's a cover.
Yes. So this is Tunnel Vision. Thanks to
Parody.
Sarah Trevino, not related to our Chris Trevino, who's answering all your phone calls over there. She's a graduate of the USC School of Music, and she her boyfriend is on the Peristyle and offered to produce that for us. So it was very cool. We almost had the real lead singer of Foreigner to sing the song, but there were some legal issues and stuff. But it sounds a lot like Double Vision, and it's Tunnel Vision.
I know that part of it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So thanks to Sarah for doing that, and it's a little catchy tune. But put on Foreigner 4. Like you want to download some music, Foreigner 4. There's a lot of good songs on that from the 70s and stuff.
Shotgun, HR picking stuff is coming for you. He says Shotgun is an excuse maker.
Call me what you want. I don't care. I can take it.
Is this about his wedding thing, or is this something else?
No, stop teasing him, by the way. This is about the defense and whatnot. But HR thinks that we're too positive, so HR has his own issues.
Man, if we really get criticized a lot for being too negative, and I think we just try to call it the way we're seeing it. I've been encouraged from what I've seen in spring football, the practice I've gone to and what I've read, from what you guys. I mean, I just feel like things have changed. And I don't think they were that far off before because the roster was good. You just had to make some better decisions at the top. It's more about the leadership. I think there's better leadership now, and that's going to bring you better results. I mean, I honestly feel that way.
Quick fire questions? We ready for that yet?
We have a caller that just came in.
Oh.
Jason from Compton. Hello. Oh, hold on. There's like a. There we go. Jason. Hi, Jason.
Oh, hello.
What's up, Jason?
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for
calling. I'm a big
in.
fan of USC. And hello.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh yeah. And I was, I'm a big fan of the linebacker course. And so, the class of 2018 came out, and I see that there were a lot of good linebackers that came out, but it seems like it was favoritism that was going on, because when you analyze all these linebackers
Oh no.
Did we lose him?
We lost him.
Oh, sorry about that, Jason. Well, we can talk about
Apparently his question, Chris put a note. Apparently it was about Raymond Scott not playing.
So he's now a safety. So they moved him to safety. But it was a really good group. Palier, Naotote. I mean, he's playing the will spot now, moving over there, which people thought was kind of strange to move him from middle to the will. But I think he's going to do well there. We talked about Solomon Tuliaupupu, who missed all last year with the foot injury. But man, he looks the part. Like, I think a lot of people I'd rather see him play over John Houston, but he will push John Houston for sure. I mean, as long as he's healthy, he looks good. And we never got to see him. We saw him a bunch of All-Star games, but he was just hurt. We never got to see him much. But when you see him in games in high school, he was a stud. And I think he's just the first day of practice we saw him out there. He was defending passes in the middle, covering tight ends and stuff. So I think it's a really great class. Just Scott's now moved to the safety spot.
And you look at guys like Elijah Winston, Abdul Malik McClain. Those guys came on later in the year, got a little bit of playing time. There were veteran guys in front of them.
Right.
And you're not going to move Cam Smith out. So if you want to say it's favoritism that Ruben Peters went in instead of Palaia and Atiote because he hadn't practiced that position, and that's also he's going back to the wheel. Well, that's where he played all last year, so it might be also that he's more comfortable in that spot, and you think that he can, you can expedite his progression by keeping him in that spot rather than moving him to the will. Or moving him to the Mike spot where Cam Smith was. So I think that might have had something to do with it. The linebacker group from that year has a chance to still be really, really good.
Yeah.
And I think that you're going to see those guys get more and more opportunities this year. Guys like Elijah Winston and Abdul Malik McClain coming off the edge. Exactly. Again, that comes to the question: are you going to have a true guy with his hand on the ground, or are you going to have a stand-up
What are those
guy?
guys' roles? Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of them they'll be contributing on special teams for sure. But with the veterans gone, I think it opens up a lot of opportunities there. So we'll see how that kind of rolls out. And just so you know, if you call in, you should be able to hear the show when you're on hold, so you don't have to listen to your computer or whatever you're watching the show on. So just listen. Once you call in, just listen to the show, and then because there's going to be a delay if you're watching like on YouTube or something.
Also, Kanai Mauga, forgot about him, which was just mentioned as well. I mean, it's a big class. You had 6 linebackers. That group is going to see more and more playing time this year.
Yeah, and Mauga got some run, so I mean, it's not like he wasn't showing up.
We have a question from Scourge77. I believe he's asked this a couple times, so sorry for just getting to it now. He says, who's number 44? He's seen a lot of playing time in the secondary, and will he see the field one day?
He's a redshirt sophomore, came in from walk-on, played at De La Salle. His name is Jack Drake. Who knows because of how few DBs they have, but I don't think he's going to play because you're going to get 5 or 6 guys coming in the fall.
Yeah.
Guys like Jalen Watson or JUCO guys are coming in and have a better chance to play than him. I didn't
You'll see him at the spring showcase.
Yeah, I didn't see him make a bunch of plays yesterday. Maybe he made a ton the first week, but having a walk-on and saying that walk-on is definitely going to get a lot of time is hard to say.
Yeah.
Even with he's going to get a ton of time this spring, and if he proves himself like Jordan McMillan did. And Jordan McMillan was a guy that was a linebacker at Loyola High School, and they moved him to safety, and he proved himself throughout the season as he adapted to that position. So maybe that's something that Jack Drake can do. He was a wide receiver at De La Salle. I don't know how much DB he played as far as that, but he's on a championship team, so usually those guys have pretty good pedigree.
We have a question from Julie on Facebook. She says, speaking of putting on weight, how fit and conditioned does the team look?
Oh, I thought you were talking about us. Just kidding.
Austin Jackson.
Shotgun lost a lot of weight leading up. I don't know if you put it back on or not.
Some of it.
Okay.
Austin Jackson looked much heavier in his shoulders, his upper body. That's a positive sign, I think. He's a guy that, obviously, when he was coming out of high school, was 255, 260 pounds, super athletic, had to put on a bunch of weight. Took him a little bit of time to adjust to it last year, or 2 years ago, when he got to campus, because he put on 30, 40 pounds, and that's, sometimes that can be hard to make that adjustment. Besides that,
Drake Jackson, I think, has put on weight since has he looked bigger to you when you saw him out there? Or?
Yeah, and his dad told me it wasn't quite as much as Clay Helton.
Yeah, Clay Helton
had
said 20 pounds. I was like, that's
in the first few weeks that he was on campus, so not quite that much then, but he's still adding weight and bulking up to the position where they want him at. I just didn't necessarily see a bunch of changes there. There's some guys that looked in really good shape. The pro day today. Guys like a Jenny Harris had like a 47 pack going on in his stomach. Chuma Adoga looked good. He was up to 312 pounds. Showed he could still move. To go back to pro day a little bit. I mean, Porter Gustin has actually lost all his muscles. I don't know if anybody. No, that didn't happen at all. No, he had veins popping and everywhere.
I wonder what that would look like though. Just like a little paper thin.
Just go back and look at his profile pictures from when he was 8 years old.
Yeah,
maybe.
It is funny to see.
When he was eating candy at one point.
The coolest thing is when you see former players come back, like the former offensive linemen and stuff, that sometimes they're like enormous and sometimes they look like regular people. And I saw Lawrence Jackson recently, so if you remember him, USC's defensive end was a first-round draft pick from Detroit and played in Seattle and stuff, or whatever stuff. And he's lost a lot of weight more recently, and he looks like a regular person, like a 6'5", but like regular dude. Like even before, he still looked like a former NFL player. Like now, he just looks like a regular guy. And it's funny to see them like, oh, you could be a normal person. Like it's because these guys are freaky big and strong and fast, and it's like sometimes they go on to life and then they change their their bodies and everything.
I saw a random tweet meme today that was former NFL lineman after getting out of the league. and then former skill players after getting out of the league.
It does happen. Mike Williams, like the former wide receiver, he looks like an offensive lineman now. He's
He
like
got big, but then he slimmed back down.
He did. He lost some weight. I think it was man. I forget. There was a different offensive lineman would come through. You'd see him and like, oh my god, man, you look amazing. It's so funny that because you're like a human body's probably not supposed to carry that much weight, especially like it's hard to be that big and strong and stuff all the time.
And then every once in a while you get Chris Wilson, the tight end / quarterback that transferred to USC, and he's a bodybuilder now.
Yeah, that's crazy. We have another question. Gerald says, how did Biggie bench more than Cam Smith? Can't be good with the pro scouts.
It depends on what the scouts are looking for, because bench can be very weighted towards the length of your arms.
Yeah.
If you have shorter arms, Toa Lomadon put up what would have been the second best number at the combine. Now, that's obviously really good, but he has shorter arms, so that helps him a little bit there. You have a big chest and short arms, it's easier. I mean, Jake Olsen even talked about it. I got long arms, so it was going to be hard for me, to keep the stamina, because it's just it's a longer motion if you have long arms. So I don't put too much stock into bench numbers, though they are a good measurement of if it's way low or it's way high, that guy's really strong or that guy's not.
Yeah.
Now, what positions is that most important at? Linemen, because you have to push guys around. Not necessarily. Now, if you're shedding blocks, I would rather see if there was some kind of test of this motion versus this motion.
Yeah.
As far
he did
as
have some other really
stuff.
good numbers, though. He jumped 39 inches or something. I mean, that's a huge vertical leap. So he showed some athleticism, and I think his broad jump was good too, 11 feet or something like that. Whatever. But I mean, he showed some really good combine numbers. That one wasn't as good. But like Shotgun said, it depends on, are you going to not draft him because he's got a really good vertical but doesn't have a great bench press? I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on the team and what they're looking for. You know, they may see that this certain aspect translates usually to a good player, or this guy, we always feel more comfortable with a guy that has a really good broad jump or whatever. And it depends on the organization and the guys that are in it.
LDR says, who is returning kicks?
Who'd you guys see out there yesterday? I think we saw Tyler Vaughn's.
Tyler Vaughn's. Before he got hurt, a little bit of Britton Allen.
Yeah, Britton Allen was doing early.
Kind of the usual. Tyler Vaughn's.
Novalis Jones.
Novalis Jones, that's true.
Stephen Carr returning them?
Stephen Carr was, yeah.
ITS probably.
No. I think he did too.
Yes, I think so. That's just, it's something that always slips your mind.
Really, the returning kicks doesn't really matter right now. It's not something, because you're going to get new freshmen come in the fall, and it's going to be an open competition again.
Yeah.
And plus, it's going to be the guy, you're going to trust the guys that have already done it. So Tyler Vaughn and Stephen Carr are more than likely going to be a punt returner and a kick returner. And if someone shows some blazing speed, which is something that John Baxter has shown that he likes, then that person, so maybe a guy like Keenan Kristen, if he can catch the ball, Ronald Jones came in and I was like, oh, he might be a kick returner, and then he couldn't catch the ball off kicks, so I was like, never mind. Yeah. And it took him about 2 days before they were like, okay, go back over and warm up with the rest of the team. So I think that doesn't really matter right now. I don't think it's a big, a big competition in the spring. I don't think it's a competition you can win in the spring necessarily.
Yeah,
I think Pittman too as well.
Yeah, YPO Boy was saying how much could he squat. I think it's really. I mean, that's not one they do. I'm curious about squat. Like, I don't know why.
It seems like that would be something you would want to do.
You would, and I know it's hard to add anything because people have been seeing this for years and years, and you just want to have the same metric to judge guys. But I think squat might be one that's maybe you could get hurt or whatever, but it's
it's a possibility.
I don't know what you would do, like max out, like if maxing squat like that might be harder to judge. Like 225, you're just like everyone puts 225. Just how many times can you do it? You're gonna put like 400 pounds. Like how many times can you squat that? I don't know. Like it's probably something different.
We have a question on Facebook from John. He says, it seems like Utah has become a legit rivalry. Do you guys agree?
I mean, they're legit. I mean, it's a well-coached team. It's sort of like they're just not anything fancy. They haven't had great quarterback play, but they always have great line play. They play really well on special teams. They always have a punter and a kicker that are amazing. And Kyle Whittingham is just a really good coach. It's a blue-collar sort of team, but they've never been able to win the South. Well, they did. They broke through last year. So I think that makes them more of a legit threat. You're going to go up against a well-coached, just a well-run organization. And so I think you have to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed when you play Utah, and we've seen USC lose to them a bunch of times. So I think it's legit as far as being a Pac-12 South rival. Now that they broke through and won the South, I definitely think it's legit. They still always, they have a lot of offensive coordinator turnover. They just haven't had like the really great quarterback play yet. But if they can figure that out, they could be a real threat.
Former Utah quarterback Troy Williams was the guy throwing at today's pro day as well.
Interesting.
Former Narbonne guy, because USC did not have a quarterback that would be throwing. But Utah, I don't think it's a rivalry. Let's not go too far.
No, it's not. Yeah.
USC has 2 rivalries. That's it.
I think it's chippy though. It's chippy.
Yeah, I think it's a
Juju
great
stiff
matchup
arm?
because the games have all been very competitive, except for this last year when it was competitive until USC gave up 35 straight points, 34 straight points, whatever it was. So, all the games have come down to the end. I mean, you have a 2-point conversion attempt decided for Utah a couple of years ago. So, I think that's what has made this a great matchup every year because they're very close. You have the game with Sam Darnold, his first game. That was a close game. They had an opportunity and couldn't get it done. There's been back and forth battles the entire time, and no game has really been decided until late in the fourth quarter until this past year.
Yeah.
I mean, even the first Pac-12 game, was USC Utah, and that was the game that USC blocked the kick, the field goal attempt at the end. USC ran it back, and there was a whole Vegas confusion about whether or not it was a touchdown or not because USC's players ran on the field, and there was a whole debate.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? That was crazy because
They changed the score of the game like 3 hours later or something. I forget.
20 minutes later, but some people had already cashed in their checks in Vegas or whatever, and then like some of the Vegas casinos like we're not doing anything until this is all figured out. Everything's the bets are locked for now. It was a really crazy kind of situation.
Yeah.
We have a couple more questions. I believe we have a call right now. Chris is screening it. Not sure if we're going to take it. Eric says, any comment on Tate Martell and the eligibility decision that came down? Does this change the landscape of college football?
I was asking Ryan even before because I hadn't read anything on it. I just seen it on Twitter, but I don't even really know what the hardship is. And to which Keely said,
How dare you? I said the hardship was that his real name is Tatham.
Yeah. There's something, I've got too much into it, but there was something where if, I think Ohio State was willing to let him go. Like there wasn't any, they didn't want him there, so it was like okay to transfer. This could be a real big can of worms. I know there were some national sports writers who say no, it doesn't necessarily mean things, but things have got to change on this because this could just open up and be complete free agency. So I don't know. I don't think it's setting some super precedent, but I don't think it's positive if you're talking about just, anybody can transfer and you can just be eligible right away. Now, if your coach leaves, you want to make a rule, your coach leaves, and you could do that and be eligible right away.
Okay, then what about your position coach?
Right,
okay, what about,
Yeah.
There have been sports in the past where there was no sit-out period. Baseball used to be you could just transfer, like Barry Zito was a guy who played, I think, 2 years at UC Santa Barbara and then came to USC for his junior year. And he didn't have to sit out anytime.
Yeah.
Now, they changed that rule so that there wasn't as much recruiting of players that are already on rosters.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing is because coaches will be like, well, we need a quarterback this year. Who's in a quarterback competition? We'll recruit you to come here, and you'll be our starter if you want. What? Wait. He was supposed to be on our roster. That whole thing. So, I think it just opens things up. Now, is that better for the student athletes? Maybe. Is it better for the game of college football?
Yeah. I think the transfer portal in general is a good idea. I think they have to make some tweaks and stuff. So I think they'll refine it. It's pretty crazy. You're going to find out there's so many people in there. There's just not enough spots for them. So I think it could be positive for the student athletes, but some student athletes might get burned by going into the portal. So hopefully there'll be some changes after this is all done.
We have another caller, and then we'll probably after the caller wrap it up with some rapid fire last thoughts.
Yeah, we got.
We're over.
We're way over.
Hugh from Simi Valley. I'm doing another. I have to do like 5 clicks to get this going.
Hi, Hugh.
Hello, Hugh.
Hi. Evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for doing this. Love the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So last year we had some really huge injuries to Porter Gustin, which probably changed our entire season complexion. We have a new strength and conditioning coach, which, when you guys put stuff on the war room and stuff, there's a variety of different responses to that individual and a late ad. So I guess my question is, do you guys see that perhaps with him being a late ad and maybe not the world's greatest guy, perhaps, does that have an impact on injuries this year mounting up and maybe offensive line, people get hurt? What do you guys think if there is an issue with that late ad, and does it add a dimension that we haven't talked about yet?
So late ad meaning Aaron Osmus being the late ad, you mean? Or?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Yeah, so I mean, he was working in strength and conditioning, but not for a college program. I do think it was probably going to be a little difficult for Clay Helton to recruit somebody at this point because of all the uncertainty and stuff going on. So I think under the circumstances, it's probably going to end up being a pretty good hire. Like I've said a million times, I'm no strength and conditioning coach expert, but I feel like just changing things up a little bit, you can, it's like you're shuffling the deck and you can kind of get some different results. Everyone has different philosophies, different programs of what they want to implement. I don't know for sure if this is going to help with, you're going to get less hamstring injuries, or you're going to get more of these or more of that. It's really hard to say, but I think it was probably time to kind of make things different. And I think some of it's going to come from Clay Helton himself, and if he really is acting a little bit differently, and it allows some different things to happen from the strength and conditioning program. So I think it's going to be kind of a combination of things. I don't know how directly you can correspond. This is going to happen, so you're going to have less of these or less of that. But I think it's going to be an overall positive for USC. I don't know what you think, Shotgun.
I mean, just the fact you got to change something. They had a ton of injuries the last few years, so change the strength and conditioning, change the the trainers. I mean, the trainers have been there for forever. They've had their issues. There's still injuries that happen, and people get second opinions, and it's completely different, diagnosis and stuff. So whatever the issue is, you had to change something. There was way too many injuries last year. There was times when there was 25 guys out of practice.
Yeah.
That's way too many. Now, maybe you want to say some of those are guys not being tough enough. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. You can't put that on a player from afar. But the fact that there were 25 players out at a time says that something is wrong. You either need to change the culture, change the training, or change the strength and conditioning training. So you got to figure out something. So starting with the strength and conditioning, I think that's a positive to make a change. Now, how much of it was necessarily what Clay Helton wanted versus Ivan Lewis decided to take the position and he was kind of left in the blue? I don't know. But the fact that there is a change, I think is a positive.
Yeah. We're not sure if he was going to make a change anyway, but it sort of happened, and sometimes it just works out that way, and I think it'll be a workout for the best.
Thanks for the call, Hugh.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh.
I was just very curious because Trevor Trout, the defensive lineman, is out now for the spring. Already had surgery because of a torn bicep. That seems to be an injury that we've seen multiple times with linemen. We saw that with Vianney Telemavau, a couple other guys I'm forgetting right now. But do you believe in recurring injuries having to do with a certain system or program?
Usually when you see a lot of the same, a lot of times it's muscle issues where you got a lot of guys that pull hamstrings. You've got to change something in your training, your stretching, or whatever, because that's become an issue. I don't think that it's something that's necessarily been a trend of torn triceps or anything like that, or torn bicep. I mean, I remember there was like 3 in 2 years torn pecs.
Yeah.
And that happened.
Yeah.
Those type of injuries happen with linemen because you're getting blocked by a guy, or you're blocking a guy and suddenly your arm gets pulled back in a different direction. Those can't happen. Now you try to strengthen those. You try to put those the sleeves that they have that attach to the other side of the arm to keep the arm in. You do some different things to try to prevent it, but I don't think there's necessarily been a trend for that type of injury.
All right, we have a question from Augustine on Facebook. He says, any background on the new support staff that were recently brought in?
Yeah, I haven't heard, I don't know. Has he announced the names and stuff for some people?
He did the other day. John David Baker is probably the most interesting name because
he's the one that was brought in.
Yeah, because he was with Graham Harrell at North Texas. So I think that's probably the most interesting name of the ones that have been mentioned. Just because you have another guy that's been in the spread. Because before it was just Mike Jinks. Now you have another guy. I think he's a QC, so a quality control guy. So how much is he able to help out on the field? Maybe not necessarily the same amount, but he can help coach up not only the players when they're off the field, but also the other coaches, to say, oh, well, this is in the spread, this is the terminology, or whatever it may be. I think that's a help there. I don't know we haven't got too deep into the backgrounds of some of those others. I think that Chris Trevino will have a story, either it's already up now or we'll have in the next 24 hours or so about that as well. It's not like Alabama, where the guys that you're bringing in for an internship as Bush Jones, the former head coach at Tennessee, or as a QC is Steve Sarkisian, former head coach at USC. You're not bringing those type of guys in, but I think it's a positive move for USC to bring in a guy that has some air raid background.
I mean, Dave Campo's, in that kind of vein, like a former NFL head coach and stuff. But they're supposed to bring in some more of the recruiting staff too. I haven't heard. We'll see.
They said they want to get that staff up to 6 people. And he said that's basically where it'll be at, which
is
is
good.
an improvement.
Right. It was basically 3, so that's doubling it. So that, I mean, the fact that they're like, the fact that it's being addressed, I think there's finally, hey, they've said, oh, why do you need it? We've always recruited well. Well, then you don't recruit well. You're like, well, maybe we should bump up the recruiting staff. Which is a good thing. That
probably should address things though before you have a bad.
Right.
True.
Yes.
Preventative measures rather than reactive could be better.
Yeah. There's a lot of reactive measures, but it needed to happen, so that's good.
Trevino says his story has been up for a week. So.
No, the new quality control assistants have been named in the last 24 hours.
Well, he texted me that, so you can take it up with Chris Trevino.
Do you want to go to some rapid fire?
John David Baker, he's been there. He's been there a while. But I think there was a couple other new names. I don't know. I'll watch instant analysis and figure it out.
Doeg? Sorry.
Don't know.
I don't know how to pronounce it. That's true. I think he's the guy from Washington State. Is that correct?
Not sure.
Anyways, ready for the rapid fire?
Go for it.
Ryan, what's the chances that if Helton is gone, that Harrell stays?
What a noise.
That's tough to rapid fire. If Helton's gone, I think there's a decent chance. Yeah, but if Helton's gone, Harrell probably didn't do that well. So I don't know.
There was another question. I don't know if I put it on here, but if Helton gets fired mid-season, who takes over as interim?
Yeah, that's very tough.
But we don't field hypothetical firings.
Yeah, it's at this point you're looking to get fired at spring practice, But I don't think there's any great candidates on the staff right now for interim.
There's not a lot of guys with Mike Jeans is the only guy with head coaching experience. I do believe off the top of my head. But another question in similar vein: will Lynn Swan still be around next season? Hey, he just said he wanted to be around for 10 years.
I know. I think that there's going to be more coming out of this FBI investigation, and I think at some point you're going to say someone at USC was the only program that had a senior administrator being part of this. I think somehow I don't think. I'm going to say from 2 years from today, Lynn Swan's not the athletic director. How's that?
Okay. What was Dr. Cedric Ware's 40 time today? It was a 4.60. Okay. How concerned are you guys with the secondary this year? I think that's a big concern. Yes. I mean, today at the pro day, there were almost as many guys in the secondary as there were all other combined guys. There was just that many guys with Lockett and Ajene and Marvell and Biggie and
Isaiah Langley and all that stuff. Yeah.
And plus you had guys like Adore and Leon McQuay and Chris Hawkins and Matt Lopes all there on the sideline. So it was like a secondary party.
I think Greg Burns is an upgrade though. Okay.
So, what Power 5 school would offer Helton the head coach job if he was open? Well, he's not open, so who knows?
I'm not guessing a lot. I don't think that's a long list.
Probably not. That's also true. Did you guys buy your Powerball tickets tonight? No, I did not.
I did not. That's
Jasper.
a tax for people that are bad at math.
How many scholarships are available in 2020? Don't know off the top of my head, but this was related to another question about if USC is going to be able to go, if they have a lot of spots to go after transfer portal guys, which is not really the case because you can, but it's pretty thin right now because they only have a certain amount of seniors. So if they go out after some transfer guys, you're going to have a pretty small recruiting class unless you have a bunch of guys walk at the end of the season.
I think there's only 8 seniors right now. There'll be some, but I don't think it's going to be a huge class.
In light of the Tate Martell becoming eligible, you think Brew McCoy becomes eligible?
Kind of think he's going to now.
Interesting.
I mean, I
mean, he really was only at school for a couple. It's like you could say, I was really only there a couple of weeks. It wasn't like he did anything. So.
Well, they've had other ones where very bad rulings from the NCAA when guys decide to transfer for much worse reasons than Brew McCoy's.
Yeah.
What round do you think Porter Gustin will go in?
I'm going to go 4.
Tommy actually said, what round do you think Porter will go in? I'm going to say first for Kevin Porter, Jr. Basketball. Switched it up there.
We already had basketball talk.
Jasper asks, what's the percentage odds of Jack Sears transferring next winter?
I'm going to go 60%.
I think Keenan Slovis throws a wrench into that percentage as well.
Who did not practice yesterday. I was looking forward to seeing him, but he did not practice. Is there a date set when team will go full pads 1 versus 1s, or is that not planned? They don't really tell us their plan, but they have scrimmages on each Saturday.
It might be
so technically
Thursday.
Last Saturday wasn't a scrimmage. It was just a practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
This Saturday will be the first scrimmage.
Yeah, so they'll have 2 scrimmages, and then they'll have the spring showcase, and then I think they'll have a scrimmage to end it with, but they haven't really said. Off the top, I don't remember. Has any quarterback separated themselves at this point? I know it's early, but since we're asking about transfers, there were transfer questions earlier. I don't think so. I mean, I think it's you go through so much install the first 3 days. Like Graham Harrell said, now's the time you start to try to separate yourself. Now that you've got stuff down, show that you have it down, see what you can do. Are we? Oh, I did that one. Do you guys think if the offense is really good, Helton will allow them to blow teams out, or will he be the same nice guy?
I think you're going to see some more blowouts.
It's a game.
Yeah.
You need to run the score up. It's fun. That's what I have to say.
We established this during the podcast today. Keely was a mean girl in high school.
No, I got a tweet that was like, Keely's a mean girl.
She was not a mean girl. I'm
I was
just
not a
kidding.
mean
But you can
girl.
tweet her if you want to say that.
Run the score up.
Keely is my name.
Always run the score up.
Yeah.
And run the score up
Do
so that
it.
you can get your subs in.
Right.
Also, that's just such an obnoxious USC thing to do. Like, that's USC.
Well,
I think you're going to see some running up the score.
Well, if you do that, then you get those guys those extra opportunities, those second and third string. Now, you don't have to put them in to start the second half, but if you can blow somebody out in 3 quarters, then the fourth quarter, hey, suddenly Jack Sears gets some opportunities. Suddenly, guys like Jordan Austin get opportunities to showcase themselves. So, I think it's really big to do that. Does USC, we already did that one. Can Carr stay healthy is the real question. He has had a couple of ankle injuries the last 2 years, but the back is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
He ended ended last season with an ankle injury. The year before, I think he missed 4 games. So he does have high ankles, I guess. So it's easier for him to get his ankle rolled up. I don't know if that's the true thing. Who's your pick to win? No, we did that one. Was Oluwalu Batiku really that bad? He was built, but he must have sucked. I don't necessarily think you can say someone who barely got on the field because he had double hip surgery the last year, say that he sucked. I mean, he was very raw coming out of high school. They knew there was going to be a lot of work. If they would have put him in the Christian Rector role, which is what he's going to be at now with his hand on the ground all the time, I liked him a lot better as a true defensive end rather than the hybrid that they were trying to get him to be.
He might have just needed a change of scenery. We'll see, if that works out for him. He's a really athletic dude. I think he can work. I still think he can work in college.
Do you think Michael Pittman Jr. will have a breakout year?
I mean, last year was pretty much a breakout year. It was
I think I would go with last year, but I think he'll have a big year.
Yeah.
Daniel Moore-Bebe, is he ever going to play again, or is he just as unhappy as his brother?
I mean, he's still around. He's just not coming to practice.
Kind of a lost cause at this point.
Yeah,
right?
I just don't know. Like, if he's not practicing now, I wouldn't put a lot of stock into
he
it.
was a part of the Rose Bowl team.
He was a big part of it. He was a big part of Sam Darnold's success. I mean, he found him.
The Washington game, he had a big touchdown in that game to help him win that on the road.
He would help this team tremendously, but just for whatever reason,
he provides a different element to the offense. And I don't know how much Graham Harrell has used as a tight end at North Texas, but Cliff Kingsbury, when he had Jay Samaro, he was the Mackey Award winner as the best tight end in the country.
Yeah.
2 more. How is JT Daniels handling the fact that he's never failed as a QB all through high school? Was he ready? Do you think he's ready now? I think he got beat up last year and hurt his confidence, and the fact that they didn't do things to help him out a lot of times.
Yeah, I think he's ready. I don't think they did him a lot of favors last year, and his numbers were still similar to Matt Barkley's when he started as a true freshman. I think he's going to have a much bigger year.
I think this offense suits him.
Yeah.
Diagnose, get rid of quickly instead of play action, take a deep shot and get hit type of thing.
Yeah.
And last one, can any of the QBs play wide receiver? I'm liking Sears for this. What say you? Sears actually was a wide receiver, if I remember correctly, for Sam Darnold.
For Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I think Fink could.
I
mean, heck, Slovis might be able to. I don't know. But
yeah. Can I give a shout out to SC Slot Guy? He's building support in the YouTube chat to like the page.
Thank you.
I know.
Thanks very
he got
much.
it up to 31 likes from 20. So shouts to SC Slot Guy. We
SC
have
Slot
a
Guy.
couple of Facebook questions before we wrap it up. John actually says, Keely, who/what were you looking at during instant analysis today? This is actually a Tunnel Vision exclusive now. 2 things.
Tunnel Vision exclusive.
Two things. One, some trainer had 2 carts of the water jugs and totally spilled them all over. Which is
Inside
ADD.
Heritage Hall where you guys were filming.
No, we were outside.
Oh.
ADD, but the thing that I saw was that Clay Helton was on the phone and actually walked over and tried to help her pick things up, which I was like, what football coach are you going to see walk over and be a nice guy? 1. 2, the other thing I was looking at, little distracted instant today. I was actually looking at 2 recruits who were walking by. Greg Biggins, our 247 national recruiting analyst, said that USC had offered Mateo Ugalele, which is the younger brother of DJ Ugalele, the quarterback recruit. So DJ was actually on campus today. So he caught my eye, and I was like, why is DJ on campus? And then I saw his brother. So that's the Tunnel Vision exclusive.
And his brother got an offer, yeah.
Yeah, those guys were on campus today. So that's actually who I was looking at.
Yeah, the number 1 recruit in the class. Whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty
just
good that he was
walking
there.
by. So I was looking at Dan, and I was like, that is DJ Ugalele. So that's what was happening. And then we had another question. Julie says, was Gustin the one who had a bicep injury as well?
He tore his bicep, I think, right?
Yeah, he had I don't know if he tore it, but he did something to it at the same time as the foot.
Right.
And the foot, he tried to come back too soon on the foot. The bicep was healed by the time he came back on that.
Okay.
When he hurt both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
In the Texas game 2 years ago.
And then final question, Michael says, which Trojan is picked first in the draft?
I'm going to go Chuma Doga.
Could be. I think Porter's he's such a unique figure that I think some team can fall in love with him and be like, we got to get that guy because he gets the
They
quarterback.
could. Yeah.
Pass rushers change things.
I'm just not seeing anyone going third round would be the earliest of anybody, do you think?
Yeah, that's probably the ceiling for me.
But it's hard, it's all it takes is one team. They fall in love with him, we weren't sure about Uchenna Nwosu last year. He ended up going in the second round, and that's but this year there's no real star at the very top. So
a team could fall in love with Marvell Tell as a cornerback, apparently.
Yeah.
So, he's got such size. He's got speed. If he can flip his hips enough to stay at that cornerback position, he's physical. Some team can fall in love with him.
42 inches or something crazy. That's pretty nuts.
Pretty crazy indeed. Alrighty, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Dude, we got to go.
I know, this is almost a 2-hour tunnel vision.
Jeez.
Thank you to everyone who wrote in, called in, tweeted us, sent us all the messages. We really like interacting with you guys, so thank you for doing that.
You guys made this awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is a really great show. Glad to have the OG team back. Shotgun, welcome back.
That's why we went long, just because I am returned.
True. That's actually accurate. But that's going to wrap it up. That's Shotgun. That is Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see you guys next week on Wednesday, 6 p.m., so make sure you stay tuned, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.